Hello and welcome back to a new video. Today I'm going to be going over my favorite show of all time, Breaking Bad, and doing a tier list of every single episode on that show. I'm going to be ranking them relative based on comparison to TV shows in general, meaning there won't be an episode here that's lower than a B tier. If I compare it to relative to Breaking Bad, then obviously the worst episodes would probably be D tier episodes, but just as episodes in general, not compared to other Breaking Bad episodes, I won't give anything lower than a B tier, if you know what I mean. I'm not, yeah, so I don't really have to explain it again. If you know what I mean, I'm not comparing it based on comparing to like Ozim and whatever, right? Like I'm not comparing it based on that. I'm comparing it or to Felina or to Crawl Space or Face Off or anything like that, right? I'm comparing it just relative to as a TV episode itself. So nothing will be lower than a B tier. So we're going to start with Pilot. Pilot's an S tier episode, in my opinion. It perfectly introduces everything. You're intrigued. The scene when Walt blows up with the red phosphorus, I think it is. That's just amazing. You're introduced to all the characters. You get to see Walt diagnosed with cancer, hiding it from his family. This, that. It's perfect intro episode. One of the best pilots of all time, in my opinion. Next, we got Cats in the Bag. For me, this is going to be an A tier episode. I love this episode. I think it's a great follow up to the pilot. Like they find out Crazy 8's alive and all that, and the classic Skyler and Jesse scene when she's like, "My name is Skyler White, yo." So yeah, it's a pretty good episode. Skyler's real first suspicion of anything Walt's doing. The ending is awesome with Crazy 8 or not Emilio's body, and they put Crazy 8 in the basement in the bathtub. Classic Walt making Jesse look like an idiot moment. Perfect A tier episode in my opinion. Alright, next we got And the Bags on the River. Now this episode, it's kind of a little slow moving. Like it's got that thing where Hank shows Walt Jr. what marijuana does to people because they think Walt Jr. is smoking it. But the thing with Walt and Crazy 8 is so good. I think I have to give this an A tier. I think these two episodes just back to back are perfect together for follow-ups to the pilot. Like the whole moment, almost wholesome moment with Crazy 8 and Walt. And then the heartbreak that Walt goes through, his first real, kill he has to do. Like it's so tough. And I mean, this is really what made him realize what he's gotten into. And then at the very end of it, he reveals his cancer diagnosis. So I think it's an A tier episode, even though it's a little slow. I think it's still fun to watch. Yeah. Next, we have Cancer Man. In my opinion, this is a B tier episode. It's good, but it's kind of like it's necessary for the show to continue on, and an episode like this needs to happen for the show to get as good as it is. Walter reveals his cancer diagnosis to the rest of his family. Jesse moves in with his parents, and they catch his brother smoking marijuana, and he has to cover for him, gets kicked out, destroys the joint on the way out, and then Walt and Jesse have a little fight in the backyard. The ending scene where Walt blows up the car, as you can see in this picture, is pretty freaking awesome. But yeah, no, it's a good episode, but it's an episode like this was necessary. It had to happen for the show to continue and get better, He can't just keep hiding his cancer diagnosis. So, yeah. Next, we have Gray Matter. This is another B tier episode, in my opinion. It's another kind of slowish episode. It's still fun to watch. Like, it's very necessary. Walt and Skyler go to Gretchen and Elliot's party, or Elliot's birthday. That's what it is. Elliot's birthday. And Elliot offers Walt a job to help him pay for his cancer because Skyler told him that. and Walt declines because he wants to make his money his own way. He wants to be the empire. He wants to be the boss. He wants to be this, that, and yeah, it's a little slow. And then Walt and his family have that intervention. It's a very nice scene, but like I said, it's not. It's no, Face Off or even like Box Cutter, for example. Like it doesn't got some action like that, but it's still a good episode, good plot. And yeah, it's the start of the show when it's focused more on Walt's cancer rather than his criminal lifestyle. It tends to be like this, but I still think it's great. Like people say the show starts off slow. It only starts off slow relative to the rest of the show. Like it's not like one of those shows where like it's actually a bad start. It's a good start. Like I was watching the first season for the first time, and I'm like, dude, this is like still a really good show. Like yeah. All right, next we got Crazy Handful of Nothing. This is one of the best episodes in season one. I'm gonna give it an A tier. Um, this episode's pretty awesome. This is when Walt shaves his head for the first time because of his hair loss. Hank arrests that janitor, and you can see Walt feels guilty about it. But he doesn't step in, intervene. He doesn't admit to anything. And then this is where Tuco is introduced. Jesse gets severely beat by Tuco because he asked for money for a product for basic business. Tuco's not okay with that. He's not cool with that. He needs not only to steal a guy's meth, but beat him for it. Walt comes in, fucking blows the place up with the classic "This is not meth" scene. And yeah, no, this is a fun episode. I remember watching this for the first time, and that's when I realized, dude, Walt is different, man. Like this guy's something's up with this guy, man. But yeah, no, the awesome episode, absolutely. Last episode of season one, we got a no rough stuff type of deal. I'm going to be giving this. Ooh, the ending is good. I think I'm gonna give it B. This is the one where Marie buys the tiara for Holly, and Skyler goes to return it, and she finds out Marie stole it because she gets detained by the police, and or by security, I guess. And then at the end of it, Tuco beats up his friend, or I guess frenemy, in Tuco's eyes for talking to Walt, letting him know hey man, you're working for Tuco. Tuco's like, nah man, you think I'm stupid or something? I don't know. Tuco was fighting a lot of demons in his head, man. Like that guy had something else, man. But yeah, you can't really understand. Like if you ask why did Tuco do this, why did Tuco do that, you're never gonna get an answer. The guy is just a complete animal, a complete animal. But yeah, that's it for season one. Actually, I take that back. I'm gonna give this episode an A because I forgot this was the episode where Walt and Jesse steal the barrel of methylamine. So I take that back. This is an A tier episode. All right, so now we're on to season two. 737 is the first episode of season two. I'm debating either A or B tier for this episode. It's a fun episode. It's kind of like the lead up to what the next episode is. I'm gonna give this actually it's a B tier episode. It's good. I mean, Nodo's is dead, and then Gonzo dies trying to hide his body, and Jesse and Walt get like scared of Tuco and all that, and yeah, it's a good prep. It's like a prep episode. And then next we have Grilled. I think Grilled's the next S tier episode. I mean, it's basically just this the Walt and Jesse with Tuco thing. You're on the edge of your seat watching it for the first time, not knowing what's gonna happen with Tuco, and it gets crazy. I think it's an S tier episode. I don't think you can ask for much more from a Breaking Bad episode, if I'm being honest. All right, next we got Bit by a Dead Bee. This episode's kind of the aftermath of Grilled. Walt goes in his fugue state. He spends basically the entire episode in the hospital until the end when he calls Jesse and says we need to cook again. And Jesse is getting questioned by the DEA for everything that happened. And then they bring Hector in and he shits his pants. You could give it B, but is it B or is it A? Oh, I'm stuck in between. I'd say it's a B. It's a B tier episode. Yeah, that's what I give it. So next we have Down. This is another, I would say, a B tier episode. It features, kind of after the aftermath of family drama and all this, Jesse becomes homeless, gets kicked out of the house, is riding around town, ending up just out of it's a horrible situation for him. And he arrives at Walt's house in the RV. Walt and Skyler get into a lot of fights in this episode, and it's one of the darker episodes. No. It is a darker episode. It's one of the, I guess, up to this point in the series, it's probably the darkest episode. It definitely gets darker, but yeah, this episode it's well written, but like I said, it's kind of more of a dramatic than an action-filled episode, so that's kind of why, I guess. All right, the next episode is Breakage. There it is. I think this is it's good. It might be A. It's Jesse meets Jane. Hank is assigned to go to, I think it's El Paso. And what's it called? Jesse's friends are still selling drugs for them and get ripped off at the end. I'm gonna give this B. I think this is still B tier. It's good, but it's low tier Breaking Bad still. Like I said, Breaking Bad episodes don't go below B. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. But yeah, I'd give this a B tier for sure. Next we have Peekaboo. I think this is an A tier episode. It's really Jesse's, the first time we see Jesse being like a good side to Jesse, I guess you could say. With how he cares so much for kids, and he's not willing to hurt anyone innocent. Peekaboo, this is a prime example. It's like where it starts. And Walt has that drama between Gretchen, because he told Skyler that she was paying for the treatment, but she wasn't actually. And it gets pretty spicy, and then he has that dinner with her, and he tells her to basically go fuck herself. It's pretty good. And Jesse has like the whole drama, the ATM machine. I think it's definitely an A tier episode. It's really solid Breaking Bad. It's when season 2 starts to pick up. Yeah, I think it's a great episode. The next episode is Negro y al Azul. Yes, this is a definite A tier episode. With because of the scene with the decapitated head on the tortoise. That is definitely wild, to say the least. Yeah. I mean, how crazier can it get than that? And then Jesse kind of is low-key in this episode, and Walt's trying to get their product going. And the word on the street is that Jesse, he's the one that smashed that guy's head at the ATM machine. So that's the word on the street. So anyways, yeah, I would say this is definitely an A tier episode. Next, we have the episode Better Call Saul. I just need to find it. There it is. I mean, you gotta factor on the fact that it's the introduction of Saul. I think it's gotta be A. But one of the best characters in the whole series, including the spinoff. He's the main character of this show of the same title. Hank is starting to struggle more mentally because of that bombing with that turtle, but that was an insane scene. And Badger gets arrested, So they have that new conflict to deal with, and they bring Saul out to this desert, and Saul describes it in Better Call Saul. You know the scene. So, anyways, it's got a lot going on that they got to think about. So, yeah, that's definitely A tier episode. Next up, we have 4 Days Out. This is an S tier episode in my opinion. It's just a great mainly just Walt and Jesse episode. Walt tells Skyler that he's going out to visit his mother, but in reality he's going out to cook with Jesse. And it comes a problem when the RV won't start anymore, so they gotta go through all this shit to like get it going. And Walt and Jesse had that famous scene, like that wholesome moment where they high five each other after they found out how much money they're gonna make. So it's a pretty awesome episode. It's filled with just action and like, oh shit, what are we gonna do? And Walt just figures out a great plan to get out of it. I think it's an awesome episode, and it goes up from there. The next episode, Over. This has that iconic scene where Walt forces Walt Jr. to drink. While you may view it as uncomfortable, I think it's a good representation of Walt's being jealous of Hank and how Walt Jr. views him more of a father than Walt sometimes. And it really shows like who he's starting to become and like his ego and all that. I would say it's definitely not a hugely action-filled episode. I'd probably give it a B tier, even though I still think it's a good episode. And Jane and Jesse run into some drama. It's just a bad relationship type of episode. So anyways, yeah. That's what's up. The next episode is Mandala. This is a introduction to Gus. So what's it called? That is basically makes it great on its own. I mean, this is the episode where Walt gets offered to do no, this isn't the episode I think it is. Is this the episode when oh yeah, this is the episode where Walt gets that short notice order for the 1.25 million, and he's got to go into Jesse's house while he's asleep on heroin. And it might be S tier just because of that scene, like where like the action and he gets a call from. Yeah, I think it's S tier. And Combo dies at the start of the episode too. I think this is definitely S tier. Definitely S tier. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Next we have. Sorry, let me just get the name of the episode again. Phoenix, that's it. Phoenix, I think it's an S tier episode. Holly is born, Walt misses the birth, Ted drops her off at the hospital. You're starting to see Walt's priorities change. $1.2 million or her birth. I mean, Holly won't remember this birth, but she will remember that $1.2 million, It is a decision you gotta make. You gotta think about stuff like that. But it's an awesome episode. But tragic at the very end. Obviously, we know how it ends with Jane's death, and Walt lets her die, and he sees Jane's dad at the bar beforehand. It is very, very, very intense episode, and it's definitely an S tier for sure. Next, we have the season 2 finale, ABQ. This is another great episode. I'm gonna give it an A tier. This shows kind of the aftermath of Jane's death. Mike is introduced to the show, and then Walt gets his surgery, and he accidentally reveals to Skyler his second cell phone, and they have a huge falling out at the end of the episode. She wants him to move out and all this stuff, and it's crazy. And then the plane crash. There's a plane crash at the end because Jane's dad goes back into work too early, and he wasn't mentally prepared, and he caused a huge plane crash at the end. It was a very crazy follow-up to Phoenix. I would say not as crazy as the episode Phoenix itself, but it was a good season finale for sure. Next we have the season opener of season 3. Season 3 episode 1, No Mas. This is an A tier episode. It's Jesse is kind of into rehab right now after the aftermath of everything, getting addicted to heroin, and Walt and Skyler discusses getting a divorce. Walt admits what he's doing, and it's pretty big turning point right there, even though we knew at the end of season 2 what was kind of going to happen. But Yeah, no, it's a good episode. Walt told Gus that he was gonna leave the drug business as well, so he wants to leave because of what's happening with Skyler. So it's a good episode, good start to the season for sure. Next we have Calabao Sin Nombre. This is I mean, I kind of want to give it a. The scene where the twins go into Walt's house is pretty nutty. It is pretty nutty, but I mean, other than that, it's really just Walt kind of adjusting to everything, and Jesse adjusting to everything, trying to get back his old house. Outside of that scene, it's probably a B tier episode in my opinion. It's good, but usually these early season episodes with Breaking Bad tend to start a little not as great as the ending episodes of the seasons, just to build up anticipation and all that. So I definitely think it's a B tier episode, but still like necessary. Next we have IFT. This is another. God, when Gus meets with the cartel guys, it's kind of it's good, and then Walt moves back in. Jesse gets his house. I think that scene where Jesse gets his house back from his parents is A tier. I think it's an A tier episode. It's each character. I think Jesse has a badass moment when he moves back into his parents' house. Walt comes back in. Skyler fucks Ted, and what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, Gus meets with the cartel about not wanting Walt dead because he's doing business with him. I think it's a solid episode for sure. Next we have the episode Green Light. This is another A tier episode in my opinion. It's pretty good. I think this is the episode where at the end, it might be this one where I think this is the one where at the very end of it, Walt is sitting at a traffic light and Victor throws the cash bag into his car after Jesse starts working with him. Let me check real quick. Hold on. Yeah, this is the episode where Walt is given his half of the thing at the end, and he confronts Ted at the start of the episode at the place for cheating for sleeping with Skyler, and it's a pretty good episode. I don't got much else to say, but it's definitely good. Jesse's trying to get back into the business. Walt he meets with, and Walt gets fired too in this episode from his job for trying to kiss Carmen. Yeah, he's starting to lose it. Loses professionalism, and it gets pretty good at this point. Like this is a definitely enjoyable episode. Little goofy, but in a good way. Next we have Mas. This is where Walt gets introduced to the Gus's super lab, and it's pretty nice looking. That's to say the least. Oh, farts! Bang my knee on this table. God damn it. But yeah, and Hank's kind of looking at Jesse's RV at this point, and Walt and Jesse are kind of in a little bit of a feud at this moment in the show as well. Obviously, they get back together. This happens a lot. They're kind of on and off. But I'd say it's an A tier episode. Just the introduction to Gus's lab is pretty amazing in itself. And Walt signs the divorce papers, but Skyler reconsiders it, and now she's still with him. But yeah, I think that's what it is. It's an A tier episode. Next, we have Sunset. This is an S tier episode for sure. First S tier of season 3, in my opinion. It's the one when Hank starts investigating Jesse's RV, and Walt and Jesse are inside, and like Hank's outside, and he's gotta, try and persuade him out of it, and Jesse's using Walter trying to get Hank out, and then he gets Saul to tell Hank that Marie got in a car crash and is in the hospital, and he gets there and finds out it wasn't true. It's a pretty action-packed episode. It's very, 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 very intriguing. It's definitely S tier in my opinion. Another thing I wanted to mention about that episode is that at the end of it, Gus orders the hit on Hank and tells the twins not to go for Walt, but to go for Hank. So that definitely plays it in the next episode. Next, we have 1 minute. This is an easy S tier episode, in my opinion. Just the ending scene with Hank being shot, I think alone makes it S tier. Just huge turning point, crazy moment, full circle moment where you kind of start to see the first instance of Walt's actions really, really impacting someone close to him. Obviously, Skylar, you could say, but she was just kind of more shocked. She never had her life in danger or anything like that up to this point. But this is the first like real moment where like Walt inadvertently put someone in danger that meant a lot to him. And then also in this episode, Walt kind of at the start of it, Hank beats the shit out of Jesse because he thought Jesse was the one that made the call to Marie in the hospital about Marie in the hospital, but it was actually Walt that orchestrated it. Little did Hank know. And Jesse's in the hospital, and Walt tries to get Gale out of the picture so Jesse can be his new partner in the lab, and he's successful. He convinces Jesse to do it. But it's a great episode. One of the best of season 3, if not the best. Top 3 for sure. Top 3. Next we have I See You. This is definitely an A-tier episode. I think it's the perfect definition of an A-tier episode. When Walt and like the whole family visit Hank in the hospital. They don't visit him, but they're there for him as he's in critical condition, and they're trying to save his life. And Jesse, the funny ass scene of him in the lab with the air thing, and he makes his suit inflates, and it's just goofy as hell. And Walt lets Gale go. So now they're officially partners. And Gus comes to the hospital and brings chicken for them all. And Walt and Gus have a little exchange, and he realizes that Gus knew that Hank was his brother-in-law all along. So yeah, it's a good episode. It definitely intriguing. I remember this was the point in the show where I was like, oh my god, like this show is good, man. Like right after Hank got shot, I was watching this show and I was like, oh my god, this show is like the most intense show I've ever watched. And we were only in season 3. That's what was insane about it. Next we have, where is it? There it is. This episode I'm gonna give, I think maybe, is it B tier? I mean, Jesse and Walt are producing again. Hank is recovering, and there's not that much that goes on. It's kind of like an in-between episode, where, there's not much that happens, if we're being honest. It's kind of an in-between episode, still important, shows Hank's recovery. Walt and Skylar offer to pay for Hank's physical therapy, and they make up the gambling story. But other than that, it's a standard episode. It's good story, good plot, but it's not a huge, like, memorable episode. The next episode, this is one that some people might give it S, some people give it D tier. I give it an A tier. I think Fly is a great episode, and even though the plot is boring, the dialogue is some of the best in the entire series. Walt and Jesse, one of the best episodes between them, if not the best. Just like both of them show a lot of vulnerability in this episode. They talk about just a lot of personal things in their life. They get really open with each other. It's really very good dialogue. It's just a shame that they talk about Jane and Walt's kind of apologizing as he's dozing off. It's a really good episode. It's got really good dialogue. The boring plot is more than made up for with the dialogue in this episode, in my opinion. Next we have Abby Q. I don't know. So, some of the words they use are foreign words to me. I apologize. But this is either an A or a B. Jesse meets Andrea, and they go to the rehab. He tries to sell drugs to her, meets Brock, and he finds out at the end of this episode that her brother was the one that shot Combo. Now, it is kind of A in a way. That rhymed. I'm a rapper, but I'm not a rapper, as Super Hot Fire would say. I'm actually going to give this a B tier, but I think it is so necessary to lead up to what the next two even the rest of the series becomes after this. I think it's a B tier episode just because it doesn't have that much going on, but it is still good. Now, half measures is one of the easiest S tiers I will ever give in this whole thing. Like, oh my god, this is one of the best. This is top two with full measure for. I'm gonna give both these episodes S tier already. I'll talk about them both. Like, these are both S tier episodes. Perfect episodes to end off season 3. Half measures. Jesse wants to get revenge because of what he found out in this episode down here, and he confronts Walt, or he wants to kill the dealers, and then Walt confronts him about it and gets him to stop because he wants to arrange for Wendy, the hooker, to poison their burgers and give it to them and kill them. But Mike stops him and meets him with Gus, and then he shakes hands with these guys, and they say no more children, but they turn out to kill Andrea's brother Tomas, I guess, and Jesse gets so mad he starts doing math, and he's about to go 1-on-2 with them with his pistol, and Walt shows up out of nowhere and runs them both over and shoots them both, or shoots the one that survived the hit. It was one of the, I think when I said the Hank thing was what really made me believe it was a great show. This took it up another level. I remember my first watch and seeing the ending of Half Measures and knowing there was one episode left to that season, and oh my god, that one episode was one of the best season finales I'd ever watched up to that point. Full measure, basically Gus confronts Walt about what happened, and then Gus views him as a liability now, so he tries to get him killed. But then that famous scene at the end where he tries to get Walt replaced with Gale, and Gale agrees to it, but Walt knows what's going on, so he gets taken by Mike and Victor, and they're about to kill him, but Walt tricks them into thinking that he'll call Jesse to lure him out, but in reality he calls Jesse, but he tells him to kill Gale, and now he knows that Gus is going to need him, because outside of Gale, Walt's his only chemist left that can cook the recipe, so he gets Gale killed instead of Walt. It was one of his smartest moves he's ever made in the entire show. It was incredible, and I love this episode. It was a great 2-episode run to end that season. Oh my god. Could you imagine watching this when it was premiered and waiting a week for full measure? Oh my god. But yeah, no, perfect. Box Cutter is next. Let me find it. Box Cutter. There it is. Perfect episode as well. A great start. One of the best, I think maybe the best season opener in the entire show. Most of the episode is Walt and Jesse sitting in the bottom of the lab anticipating what's going to happen. And after Jesse killed Gale, and it's just this long thing. Gus does not say an entire word until he leaves the lab. He doesn't say one word. He just goes up and slits his own employee's throat. 1, to send a message to Walt and Jesse that he's not to be fucked with, and 2, because Victor got himself seen on the crime scene when he rushed to Gale's apartment to try and stop Jesse, but he wasn't quick enough. It was nuts. That's what most of the episode was. That was the most important part of it. But yeah, no, it was an awesome episode. Great way to start the season. Next, we got 38 Snub. This is an A-tier episode. Walt buys this gun at the start, as you can see in this picture right here that they have on tiermaker.com. And then Jesse buys a stereo system. He starts throwing parties, and everyone has to leave. And you can see at the very end of the episode that Jesse's like really struggling mentally with Gale's death. That famous scene of him sitting in front of the stereo system is really it's this powerful scene. And then at the end, Walt and Mike get into that bar fight because Walt said he said they should try and deal with Gus, and Mike wasn't having any of it. And yeah, it was a good episode. Next we have the episode Open House. This is another good episode. Let me find it. Open House, there it is. This episode, is it B or A? So Walt discovers the camera in the lab that Walt installs, and then Jesse is starting to get worse and worse. He has he's a bunch of crackheads in his house now, and he's giving up a bunch of money. And then Marie has that kleptomania episode because of Hank treating her like shit at home. I'm gonna say it's a very low A. I'm gonna give it that, a low A. Still a good episode, but just screeches in at an A tier episode for sure. All right, the next episode we have is Bullet Points. Let me just find it. There it is. This is very solid A tier, mainly because of the scene at the end, or not at the end, I guess the whole episode of Walter and Skyler preparing to tell Hank and Marie about the car wash, and then Walt reveals that Heisenberg's out there, and like Walter's expression when he sees Gail and Hank reading through the notes and saying WW, and Walt's like, ah, you got me. And then Jesse at the end of the episode is taken to Mike to a secret location. And yeah, I think Bullet Points is definitely an A tier episode. Sorry, I was actually wrong. The next episode, Shotgun, is the one that that happens. But Bullet Points is still a great episode. But Shotgun's an even better episode in my opinion. It might be even S tier. It's really good episode. Mike and Jesse go on the collections and pick up the things, and then that robbery that was actually staged by Gus at the end happens. And this is where Walt tells, it might be S tier, that robbery, but it's a little slow. A tier. A tier is respectable. A tier is respectable. But yeah, this is a good episode, even better than Bullet Points. All right, next we got Cornered. This is another A tier episode in season 4. Great episode. It's this famous "I am not in danger, I am the danger" scene that everyone knows and loves. And then more of this episode's kind of just it's mostly just the same thing as the last episode, where Jesse and Mike kind of go on more things or whatever, and Walt's kind of confused, and he starts to suspect that Gus may be trying to lure Jesse onto his side, and they get more into that later into the season. Next we have Problem Dog, and this is yet another A tier episode. This is where Walt confronts Jesse about what he thinks Gus is trying to do, and they create the rice and cigarette situation that ends up being a huge thing later on. And Jesse has an opportunity to kill him at a meeting when Gus asks him to make coffee, but Jesse doesn't do it. And then Walt, it's the famous scene. Skyler makes Walt return the car, and he blows it up. So yeah, no, it's a good episode for sure. Next we have Hermanos, and I actually think this is an S tier episode. It starts off with Gus telling Hector. It kind of shows the relationship between Gus and Hector this whole episode, and it starts off with Gus telling Hector about how the cousins got killed, and then Gus is brought in for questioning by the DEA because Hank in the last episode told them at the end that he found Gus's fingerprints at Gail's apartment, and he's brought in for questioning, and he kind of tricks everyone, but Hank is still a little suspicious of him, and he continues to go in, and then he brings Walt to Los Pollos Hermanos to plant the tracking device, and what's it called? Let me just yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure I had the right episode order. And he's kind of hesitant. He goes in, tells Gus, and Gus is like, "Do it, like plant it, do it." And then he puts it on, and then Mike takes the tracking device off and puts it in I think Gus takes it off actually and puts it just by the garbage can or something. But and then it shows the flashback of Gus and his partner and Hector shooting him. It's a really good like origin story episode. It's definitely S tier in my opinion. Next we have the episode Bug. This is an A tier episode. It has that scene right here in this picture where Gus kind of walks out in the middle of this huge gun shootout, and he just stands there like, "Shoot me," and they don't shoot him. And then Jesse goes to. There's also that is when Ted approaches Skyler about his tax problems or whatever. And yeah, that's pretty bad. But and she's kind of now got a conflict. This ends up being a huge thing eventually. and Jesse goes to Gus's house for dinner to talk about him going to Mexico, and then Walt approaches Jesse. They talk, and because he was tracking Jesse, and he's pissed off that Jesse didn't kill him, and then they get in this huge fight, and now Jesse's going to Mexico to cook meth for the cartel in the next episode. Now this leaves us Salud, easy S tier, beautiful episode. Gus, Jesse, and Mike are kind of more an A plot, and Jess and Walter kind of has like a B plot role in this episode. And Gus poisons the entire cartel to get payback for what happened in this episode right here, Hermanos, in the flashback. And he's hated them this whole time, and he just took all of them down. He did what his goal was. Man, no matter what you think of Gus, dude, I think those Salamancas deserved it. I mean, Gus got what was coming to him too, but he watched every Salamanca die, including Hector. He watched every Salamanca die, and I think they deserved it. And not just Salamancas, all the cartel guys, Don Eladio, Don Juan, all of them. So he poisons them. He gets poisoned himself because he had to take the shot that was poisoned, so that Don Eladio wouldn't think it was poisoned. And yeah, it was an awesome episode, very awesome. And Skyler, I think, is this the episode where she gives him money? I think this is the one where yes, she gets Saul to tell him that he got like some inheritance from this uncle he never met before, this great uncle. Like it was like $674,000, I think, and and it was actually Skyler that gave this money, and he used it to lease a Mercedes and not to pay the IRS, so it creates a whole conflict. Next we got Crawl Space. This is one of the best episodes of the series, top 5 in my opinion. It starts with Gus at the hospital with like Mike as well, all of them, because Mike got shot, Gus is poisoned, and what's it called? They walk out of the place, and Jesse tells Gus, "Don't kill Walt, like don't do it," and Walt and Hank go on a investigation while he's helping him, and Hank wants to go to the laundry where the meth lab is, and Walt, to avoid it, actually crashes into another car to stop Hank. He went to those depths to stop him. It was pretty interesting. This episode also happens. Huel and what's Bill Burr's character's name? I can't remember. It's not coming to me right now. But they go to Ted's house. It's one of the funniest scenes, and he goes, "Huel, how happy are you?"
"Reasonably."
"What would make you unhappy?"
"This little motherfucker not doing what he's told."
And that's what happens in that scene. And then Ted tries to escape and breaks his neck, of course. And then after that, the scene, once he tells them that like Hank is onto them and all that. Yeah, sorry guys, something came up, but I was talking about Huel being there and Ted breaking his neck when he tripped on his own rug. And then the end of the episode, Gus takes Walt out to the desert, tells him he's going to kill his whole family if he tries to interfere with Gus is killing Hank. He fired Walt. Walt goes to Saul. He tries to get him disappeared. And then he goes back home to look for the money to get this guy who will disappear him and his family, make them go away. But Skyler gave all the money. He doesn't have the money, so there's this intense scene in the basement, in the crawl space, I guess you call it. And it was just intense. It's Walt manically laughing. It was incredible. Next, we have the episode End Times, and this is another S tier. This episode features where Jesse is, Walt's family goes to Hank's house for protection from the DEA, but Walt stays back to try and take care of this Gus situation. And then Jesse finds out that this kid of this girl he's been dating named Andrea was poisoned with and he was very sick in the hospital. They didn't know it was ricin yet, but Jesse thought it was ricin, so he suspected that Walt did it. but Walt manipulated Jesse into thinking it was Gus, and Gus did it to make Jesse think that Walt did it, in order to get Jesse to kill Walt. But what actually happened was Walt did it to make Jesse think that Gus did it to help get Jesse on Walt's side so he can help him kill Gus. And that's basically how it went. And then they go to the hospital to they go to the parking. He gets Gus to meet with Jesse at the hospital, and he plants a bomb on Gus's car, but Gus senses something's up, and he doesn't go to the car. So then we're left with the next episode. And the next episode is Face Off. This is a top 3 episode in the entire series. Gus and Walt's final show off, really, to be honest. And it is intense. You can see what Gus's face looks like right here. That's the aftermath of it all. And it was just awesome. One of the best episodes. There's not much more to say. Walt prepares a bomb. He gets Hector, the guy with the bell, to detonate the bomb, arrange a meeting with Gus, lure him out there, and the rest is history, baby. That's the best one of the best episodes in the series. All right, Live Free or Die. Where is that? There it is. This is the first episode of season 5. My opinion, S tier, because we get the awesome scene with the magnet at the end, with they destroy the evidence. This is where Walt starts to become his own kingpin, and he really needs to work with himself. You know, he really starts to have to handle things on his own that Gus would have handled for him before, or Tuco or Saul. Now he has to take matters into his own hands, destroy his own evidence, all that stuff, because now he's the one in charge. So that we see it for the first time where he destroys DEA evidence with a huge magnet. It was actually Jesse's idea, but yeah. And we see a flashback at the start of the kind of a foreshadow of the final episode. So S tier. Next we got Madrigal. Where is that? Madrigal. It's gonna be an A tier episode. This is where what's his name? The German guy. Peter. No, what's his name? Something Madrigal. I think his last name's Madrigal. But he kills himself at the start of the episode. He's a German businessman with ties to Gus Fring, because the DEA are questioning him. And Walt and Jesse ask Mike to get into a business with them, and Mike originally says no, but then he Then he eventually agrees, and what happens is Lydia. We're introduced to Lydia. They just discuss business, and then she gets paranoid about these guys that got sent to prison, and or no, were they sent to prison yet? I'm trying to think. No, I don't think they were yet. I don't think they were sent to prison yet, but Lydia was paranoid that they wouldn't talk, and she hired one of them to kill Mike, and Mike was about to kill her, but he decided not to, and then he teamed up with Walter and Jesse. So yeah, it was a good episode. Next we have Hazard Pay. Where is it? Hazard Pay. There it is. A tier. Great episode. This is where they start to cook and they find a place to cook. They choose to use pest control guys to put tents over people's houses, and they move the meth equipment in and out of these houses and cook. And there's some Skyler and Walt drama starting to brew up here as well. She starts to become afraid of him and all that. But it's really just a really solid episode. Yeah, that's what it is. And then Mike introduces his legacy cost to the guys, and Walt's not very fond of it. And I think at the end of the episode, he kind of hints to Jesse that Mike's got to go soon. Like, Mike's not going to last because of this kind of stuff he's doing. So, yeah, it's a good episode. Next, we have 51. This one I'm really stuck if I want to give it A or S. It's got like kind of that Skyler pool drowning herself on the... What did I just say? Skyler drowning herself in the pool at Walt's 51 birthday party. It kind of shows the difference between his 50th and his 51st. It's a pretty dramatic episode. And Jesse and I just think this just the Walter and Skyler makes this an S tier episode in my opinion. It's really great acting at the end of the episode. Walt's 51st birthday, and all this stuff happens. She tries to drown herself in a pool to send a call for help to Hank and Marie, and they take the kids, and Hank gets promoted to ASAC in this episode too. And there's Jesse and Lydia look through this meth barrel, and there's a camera on the bottom of it. Mike's suspicious of her doing it, but Jesse doesn't know. So yeah. Next, we got one of the best episodes in the series as well, Dead Freight, easy S tier. So Walter at the start of the episode goes to Hank's office and bugs a picture of him and Marie, and with like a listening device so they can hear what they're saying on the computer. And it turns out that the DEA actually did plant that camera. It wasn't Lydia. So she tells them about a barrel, how to get some methylamine, and she says there's a train, but you guys gotta rob it. And they discuss the robbery. This whole huge action-packed robbery goes down. They stage it. They have a truck park in front of the train to stop it, but then this good Samaritan comes in and tries to push it out. So they're at the last minute. Walt wants to make sure they get every last bit of methylamine in there, and Mike's telling him to call it off, but Walt doesn't want to. And at the very end, a kid shows up and this guy Todd that they're robbing it with, who he was part of the pest control, actually shoots the kid, and that's where we leave off the episode. It was a very good episode. Great, well written. So next we have the episode Buyout. This is an A tier episode. It's really good. It's Mike and Jesse, after what happened at the end of Dead Freight, decide they're gonna leave the meth business, and they negotiate with this guy named Declan, and he said he'll only agree if all three of them step out, but Walt doesn't want to. So Mike kind of tries to force him to, and then he kind of would use like a twist tie and attaches his wrist to something. I can't remember what it was, but Walt escapes, uses like a coffee pot, and he used something to burn the something electrical to burn the thing off his hand, and then he used a water tap to get the burn off, or to ease the burn, and and then they do that. Mike's about to kill him, but he says he has a better idea. So Walt becomes the cook for this. Oh, that's actually Say My Name. That's what happens next. But that's basically the drama between them, and that's about it. Oh yeah, and this is the episode where Jesse comes over for the famous awkward dinner scene as well. Yeah. Next, we have Say My Name. Obvious S tier episode. The famous scene at the beginning. Say my name. Obviously. And then this main plot of this episode is Mike is basically getting taken down. This is the end of Mike. The DEA arrest his lawyer, and he is willing to give Mike up. He just snapped like that. A snap of a finger, he was willing to give Mike up. So Mike gets pinched by the DEA. He's got to find a way to escape, and he runs away. And then he needs one of them to bring his bag that he left. And Walter does it. And Walter asks for the names of his 9 guys that are locked up in prison, but Mike won't do it. And Walt and him getting an argument. Mike insults Walter, calling him an ego maniac, and says he ruined everything. And then Walt gets mad about this. He shoots Mike, and Mike dies after that. And yeah, it was a very crazy episode, and a lot of people stopped liking Walter after this. Not that he poisoned a child, but because he did this to Mike. Next, we have Gliding Overall, easy S tier. This is kind of the goodbye episode to Walt's criminal life. Not criminal life, but his life as a meth cook for sure. He definitely commits crimes after this. But as an active criminal, like he kind of commits crimes as a hobby after this. But as an active criminal, killing people and cooking meth, this is kind of his goodbye, because there's like a whole montage of him cooking, and then Skyler realizes he made $80 million and convinces him to retire, which he does. And what else happens here? I just need to remember. He gets I was just looking through my notes. He gets he meets with Todd's uncle Jack, and he has a bunch of prison connections, and he gets all of Mike's guys killed in just brutal prison killings, 10 of them in the span of 2 minutes. So he is ruthless at this point. You know, he kills all these guys to save his ass. And Hank is kind of devastated because he's like, oh, fuck, we just lost more evidence. This Heisenberg guy is creeping up on me, man. Like, he keeps getting the better of me. I get somewhere, and he's one step ahead every time. And at the end of the episode, Skyler is happy. The kids move back in. Walt's happy. Everything is all good. What can go wrong? Walt's retired. He's made enough money. His cancer can get him, and it's all good. I also believe this is the episode where Walt goes for his chemo. Yeah. No, it's not chemo. He goes for another CAT scan, and he finds out his cancer's back. They don't say it, but you can kind of tell that it's back, and it's later revealed that he found out his cancer was back here. So, Hank is there. He goes to the bathroom and finds a book that was signed by Gale, the guy that Jesse killed in season 3. And he realizes after reading this book and this picture right here that Walt is Heisenberg. And then everything explodes just after it was looking good for everyone. Nope. Yeah, that's where it went. So in this episode, we have next Blood Money, obvious S tier again. Jesse's point is he starts to feel guilty after Walt gives him his money, and he starts throwing it, giving like tens of thousands to homeless people, and they find it all, and he's it's very heartbreaking to see Jesse like that, but that's Jesse's part. Blood Money, Walter is he's kind of just living his normal life again, and Hank actually before this, at the very start of the episode, Hank leaves the house after saying he has his stomach's bothering him because he found Walt's thing, so he wanted to get out of there, and he took the book home. He had a panic attack while he was driving, and he had to pull over. And it was pretty intense. He realized everything full circle there. He couldn't believe what was happening. He was heartbroken. He was confused. He was pissed off. All those emotions in one. And then at the very end of the episode, Walt finds the GPS tracker, and he notices that his book is missing. And he finds the GPS tracker in his car, and he's like, "Oh shit! I think Hank might have found out." So he goes to Hank's house, talks to him for a bit, and then he asks him about the GPS tracker. And then Hank punches him in the face, and then he's like, "You're Heisenberg. It was you." And then they talk back and forth. Walt denies it, but kind of he never admits it, but he's trying to say that it was him without saying it was him, so he doesn't get in trouble. And Hank knew that too, that Walt wouldn't admit it, but both of them knew. Hank knew that Walt knew that it was him. Well, yeah, Hank knew it was him, and Walt knew that Hank knew it was him, and Hank knew that Walt denying it, but he was actually trying to say it. It was a full understanding both ways, but they just wouldn't say the proper words to get the message out. And Walt ends the episode by saying, "If you don't know who I am, your best course of action would be to tread lightly." And then it cuts to black. So the next episode is Buried. Obviously another, I think the ending, any in 5B is just every episode here is just a S tier episode. I don't even think it goes without saying. Buried is a great episode. Hank tries to talk to Skyler about it, and she refuses to talk because she's kind of conflicted in what she's going to do. And Walter goes out Marie confronts Skyler about it, and she finds out that she knew all along and smacks her in the face, and there's a scene where she's trying to take her baby, and she says no, and Hank's like, "Marie, no, don't take her baby." And then Walter goes out to the desert and buries all of his money in the same spot where they started cooking. And then DeClan is killed by Uncle Jack's gang, so he's now out of the picture. The business is completely in the hands of Todd and Jack and all of them, the meth business, and they're starting to get powerful. And Hank is at the DEA office. He can't tell them because he'll get he can't tell them the DEA about he's in a tough situation with his brother-in-law being the guy he was chasing for over a year. And and then Walt, or no, not Walt. He's at the office and he sees that Jesse is being detained for in question because of the blood money thing where he was throwing the money out the window. And that's where the episode fades to black as he walks from the room. Next, we got Confessions, S tier, and it goes without saying. This episode sees Jesse refuses to work with Hank over this at first, and then Hank and Marie and Skylar and Walt all meet up to discuss what's happening and what they're gonna do, what's going on. Like you gotta talk, you gotta get yourself out of this, your kids, stuff like this. And Hank and at the end of the meeting, Walt gives him a DVD, and it has a recording of Walt saying that Hank was the mastermind behind the entire operation, while admitting he's basically using the word Hank to describe himself. Or he's kind of, sometimes he uses Hank as Gus, he uses Hank as himself, he uses Hank as Tuco. Like he uses Hank's name in replacement of someone else, and it is a true story, but he just uses Hank's name as a replacement, so Hank can't turn it into the DEA because he doesn't admit to anything. And it was basically a like shocking clip, and then he finds out that Walt paid for his physical therapy. And then Walt tries to work to get Jesse out of town because that's kind of a loose end. He doesn't want Jesse being detained by the police in this situation now, so he doesn't want to kill Jesse because he cares about him, so he tries to get him out of town. Jesse agrees, but then he realizes out of nowhere, well, not out of nowhere, it's because Saul took his weed from him because he didn't want him getting denied for being high. But he realizes, and he's like, oh wait, Saul must have been the one that took that ricin cigarette and poisoned Brock, or used it to make it look like that's what was poisoned Brock, even though it was Lily of the Valley. He took the ricin cigarette out to make Jesse realize, but it wasn't actually ricin. But it was kind of used to manipulate him. And then he goes to Saul's office, points a gun at him, demands him tell him what's going on, and then he runs to Walt's house, takes Saul's car, and pours a bunch of gasoline in his house, and then the screen fades to black. And that's the episode. Alright, next we have Rabid Dog, S tier. This episode sees Walt coming home, finding the place drenched in gasoline, and then he goes to his family and moves to a hotel. He makes up some stupid lie about a gas pump, about why it's like that. And then Skylar and Walt are like, Skylar tells Walt to actually kill Jesse. So he meets up with him to actually talk to him, just to explain himself. He didn't actually plan on killing him, but Jesse thought that Walt was trying to kill him. And then at the end of the, and then what happened? The reason the reason Jesse met up with him is because Hank actually, it was revealed when he was trying to burn down Walt's house that Hank stopped him and then said, let's work together. Because now they both hate Walt. Now he can get Jesse to do it. And then he gets him to meet him, but Jesse won't do it. And instead he calls him and kind of makes like a threatening thing. So at the end, it ends with Walt calling Todd and saying he needs Jack to kill Jesse for him. So that's how it goes. It's now Jesse's and Walt are completely on different ends. He can't get Jesse to work with him anymore, and he's on Hank's side, so he's looking like trouble. Next we got To'Hajiilee, one of the best episodes of the series, top 5 easily. And this is where they talk about the hit he's got on Jesse and all that. And then Hank's kind of going to desperate measures to get Walt done. He fakes Jesse's death to Huell. It convinces him that he killed him, and then Huell tells Hank a bunch of info about Walt and what he did, or not where he buried the money, but the fact that he got it in Home Depot barrels. So that way he was able to fake a text to Walt to convince him from Jesse's phone that Jesse was about to burn his money because he used the same barrel and put just a bunch of money in it. And then Jesse called him, and he lured Walt out to the location, and then Hank and Gomez and Jesse were all there. But Walt called Jack and said, hey man, I'm in trouble. Jesse's here to kill me. He didn't know that Hank was there, and he said, you got to come here fast to save me and kill Jesse. And then he sees that Hank's coming, he says, don't bother coming anymore. It's over. Don't come. And then Walt gets arrested. Hank calls Marie, tells her that he did it and all this. And then Jack's gang actually arrives against Walt's orders and begins a whole shootout with we don't know what happens yet. Huge shootout, screen fades to black. And that brings us to Ozymandias. S tier, the greatest episode in the entire series. It reveals that after that big shootout, Gomez got killed and Hank was injured with a bullet right in his leg. And Walter tries to convince Jack not to kill him, offers him $80 million, but Jack kills him anyways and steals all of Walt's money except for one barrel. He leaves him with it. Walt buys a truck off this guy for like $100,000 or something like that, and then he comes home. Marie tells Skyler about what happened, but she doesn't know that Hank died, and they tell Walt Jr. and then they come home and they're surprised to see Walt there. And Skyler says, "What happened?" They realize that Hank's probably dead, and Walt tries to explain himself, but they don't want to listen. She pulls a knife on him. They get in a huge fight. Walter Jr. breaks it up and protects his mom, and then he realizes that even his family switched up on him. Nobody loves him anymore, and he runs away, takes Holly, and then they get in this call with the police, and Skyler and Walt, she calls the police as Walt's left, and Walt calls her to talk, and he makes it look like, because he knows the police is there, even though she said they weren't, and he makes it look like she was a complete victim in this situation. He was forcing her to do everything to get her off the hook. At the end of the episode, he left Holly at a fire station with a note on her with the address of Skyler's house, so he doesn't have to go back there herself, but they'll get this baby back. And then the episode ends with him getting on the van to go to a new location with a new identity. Next, we got Granite State. This is one of the darkest episodes of the entire series, probably the darkest episode. Walt falls into this new place. He's moved up. He's now Mr. Lambert, and he gets like ultra depressed because he has to sit alone for like months. And Jesse has become actually I didn't talk about what happened to Jesse in the last episode. The Nazis took him, Jack's gang, and for questioning, and they brutally beat him. And all that. So he's actually alive, even though he asked them to kill him. But they said, "Walt, let's question him first, just to make sure he doesn't have any bad things on us, and then we'll kill him. Is that all good?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." So Jesse's now being held literally a slave to these guys to cook meth for them, and he tries to escape, and they end up killing his girl Andrea because of that. And he pays big time. He realizes it. Skyler gets visited by Jack's gang and says, like, "You saw Lydia at the car wash. Don't say a word about her ever." And like threatens the whole family. And like they see her baby. It's terrifying. At the end of the episode, Walt goes to a bar and he calls his son to ask him if he could give him $100,000 that he was going to send him. And Walt Jr. was having none of it. And then at the end, Walt literally gives up. He's like completely done. He has nothing left to live for. So he calls the DEA and tells them where he is. And and then eventually, as he's waiting for them to come, he watches the TV and sees Gretchen and Elliot talking about him and saying that he had nothing to do with the creation of the company, and that brings back Heisenberg. That brings him back out of his shell, and he is ready. The Breaking Bad theme plays as the screen fades to black as his ego gets hurt by them saying this about him on the TV, and then we're on to the finale episode, and I'm gonna just do it right now. Valina. Final episode. Walter visits Gretchen and Elliot and has $9 million on the table, almost $10 million. It was like 9.7, I think. And he tells them, "Give this to my son on his 18th birthday." And then he says, "Or else." And then he has Badger and Skinny Pete with laser pointers, and they pointed at her, and he says, or not her and him, both of them, and he says, "I hired the two best assassins of west of the Mississippi. If you don't, they'll be watching you to make sure you do this." And then the scene shows on the car where it's not actually snipers, but it was just laser pointers. It was pretty funny. And then after that, Walt visits Skyler for a final like goodbye, like to wrap things up with her. He gives GPS coordinates to where Hank is. He talks about why he did what he did, kind of like a final goodbye. He needed to get this off his chest. And he says he did it for himself, not for the family. And then he says goodbye to Holly. He looks at Walter Jr. but doesn't interact with him, but he watches him walk into the house, see it for the last time. And then finally he visits Jack's gang, and he has a machine gun in his trunk. He wants to kill Jesse at first, but then he realizes what these guys have been doing and he feels a little bit more sympathy for Jesse. He says, you know what? I'm going out. Fuck these guys. They killed Hank. Jesse, well, we didn't get along. I'm going to save him. Let that kid live his life while I go out and do it. And I go out with a bang. So he grabs his keys as they're about to kill Walter, and he tackles Jesse, and then he clicks the trunk opener button on his keys, and the machine gun starts firing off, and Jesse is safe because he's being protected by Walter, and he's lying down on the ground. Everyone's dead except for Jack, Todd, Walter, and Jesse. Walter got hit. Todd and Jesse remain unhit, and Jack was like basically almost dead. Walter shot Jack and killed him, and Jesse strangled Todd to death. It was just left to Jesse and Walter. Walter had a small gunshot wound in his stomach. Not small, but like a gunshot wound in his stomach, and Jesse was pointing a gun at him and realized that he had that, so he left him to die himself as he was pointing the gun at him, and he was about to kill him, but he didn't. And then it ends off with Walt answers Todd's phone. It's Lydia. He reveals to her that he poisoned her with ricin, and she's about to die, so all the loose ends are tied up. Jesse and Walt give each other one last nod. Jesse drives off in the El Camino, and then Walter slowly goes into his lab. He has one final moment looking at, everything that he did for the last couple years of his life, and then he bleeds out and dies. That's how the show ends, and that's my tier list. Thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye.